behind me there is the column around which I will build a diorama of construction for the next show called Construction Destruction. It's a group show that the people in my building and other members of the Brick Bottom Artists Association may submit work for. And in order for me to build this thing, I need to have a base that I can build to the column right now, so I build this thing the right size. And so that's what I'm going to do for the next probably half an hour. The video, however, it won't be that long, so I'm just going to, I'm waiting for my hot glue gun to heat up. What I'm planning on doing is using these boxes that held child seats, car seats in them, because they're quite large and they're relatively sturdy. So they're going to go around the column, and I'll glue them all together so that I can just clamp the thing around it. I'll leave one edge open, but I will build the base, which would be about 3 feet, 2 feet tall. And then I'm planning to build it in such a way so there's a little gap that I can slide the areas that will go up, sort of telescoping them in smaller sections. So that's my cunning plan. Now, as you see, the top of the column here has some boards adhered to it, which would normally get in my way, but because the top of this piece I'm making will be open and there'll be cranes and tops of buildings and stuff going up, they will not reach that far to be a problem. So that's my cunning plan. So is my hot glue gun heated? I have my hot glue sticks here. So the first thing I'm going to do is fold and glue these flaps down so that, how's that crotch view for you? Fold these flaps down so that I can, how am I going to do this? That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to fold these flaps down to create a thicker base. Come on, glue. Why are you not working suddenly? Did I break you? Oh, there. I was too rambunctious with, I was squeezing before the glue was molten. I think in the real world, or the art supply store, which is now closed, I can actually buy rods, 3-foot long rods of this glue. I don't have to keep feeding it, feed me. So here is the folded up bottom. That will be a corner. Can't see what I'm doing. That's the corner of the octagonal column. Then I'm going to slide into this here. I'll make a flap on the next one to slide it in and then glue it down. And I should when all is done, have a ring, 2 foot tall or thereabouts, cardboard ring that will be the base of my sculpture. Wish me luck. So my plan is working fine, except I did it backwards. I ended up putting, I didn't mean the lettering on these things to be on the outside, but that's okay, it's all going to be covered up anyway. So this is what I've done. What I did was I glued these flaps up on 4 corners. So here's a corner and that's a corner, and they're alternated. So this corner here is going to be made with just that, without the flaps, and these will be set in to the slot here. Put tab A into slot B, and then I will hot glue that to here, and I'll slot that into this one and hot glue that in, and then proceed all the way around with the other flapped corners and the other unflapped corners. And then I will have a octagonal base that is somewhat flexible, so I can remove it from the column and go upstairs and start applying actual constructed and crafted and created and arranged pieces to the base. The base will essentially be corrugated cardboard with an occasional orange traffic cone or construction worker, etc. Then it'll go up to tractors and bulldozers and cranes and buildings and taller buildings, and then God at the top, or whatever. Or whatever. Well, look, I have some leftovers. Anyway, here's the plan. These are all now cemented together, and they go all the way around the column. This area here is where it will be open, so the collar will fit around the column, and then for the show, I'll glue this flap down, or whatever is on this flap will be glued down, so I can build it here in situ. This will be solid, of course. And I may add another flap down here to glue just to make it sturdy. But the plan is, the cunning plan, once I build the ground level, I will then build facets that are two sides tall, and they will slide into the space between the cardboard here and the column. So there's a little bit of gap here to allow for that allow for the sliding in, and then there'll be a middle ground here, and then sliding into that will be the upper areas. So it's sort of telescoping, and so that's the plan. So I've got the base really from almost the floor up to where you see it end is all just going to represent dirt. And ground, with maybe some ditches being dug or piles being driven down or something. And then the construction area will be here, and then the finished buildings in the distance, or representing the distance, will be behind, and then those tall cranes will go reaching up. So there we go. It worked. Yay. So here's the base. So far, the seam, as you can see, is there. It will be sealed at some point. And I'll work on this tomorrow. A little bit more tonight, but I'll work on it tomorrow morning and maybe get it done with the dirt part. Then comes the city, then the cranes will go up on the top. But here's what it looks like so far. And even a workspace like this turns into a mess when I'm involved. But it's okay. These slid in behind as my cunning plan worked. This is going to be interesting to see how this glues together. I'll have to have little tabs that I can pull across to do that. But it'll go about to here. The cardboard brown part, and then will come the buildings, which I think I'm going to represent just as gray rectangles rather than anything fancier than that. I think I want them to be less interesting than the construction that turns them into buildings. The construction is always more interesting than the finished product. So anyway, that's the plan. So here's the column that I'm surrounding with cardboard. And I've got about 4 hours to work on this today. And my hope is to build it up to about just below my eye level, maybe. I think here, that sort of level is going to be the, quote, horizon line. And you'll see down toward the bottom, which is going to be, quote, the foreground, you'll see the larger elements in the foreground, and then they'll get smaller as we go up to the horizon line, following the rules of perspective. And my thought was initially one thing, and now it's turning into something else. From sort of here-ish toward there-ish, I will be building the background. This is the background, essentially, for my trucks and people and cranes and stuff. The background will be made with less tearing and more geometry. And my plan is to include in these upper areas things like this that have sharp cutouts in them and seams and things that don't necessarily mean windows and buildings, but mean grids and blocks and foundations and pilings and stuff. So it's all going to be relatively monochromatic. You might see, an area like this that has a big black blob in it, or something like this that you might see some horizontal black lines, maybe even something like a little dot like that, which is meant to represent the order from the chaos down here. On top of this sort of cut grid, there's going to be some areas that are going to be torn and ripped just to have it not be like Jello 1, 2, 3, but it'll be more of a mix. So right now, my hot glue gun is heating up on its pile of kindling, and when it starts to burn and I smell smoke, I'll know that it's ready. Now I'll go get it now before something horrible happens. So I've got essentially 4 hours to do some of this, and then I have to move this out of here because there's a gallery show and the gallery is open today, so I need to vacate the premises. I'll store this, I hope, in the office down here on the first floor so I don't have to lug it across the courtyard and up the elevator and back to my house, which it won't fit now. No, it'll fit in there, but I just won't be able to move. I may ask a neighbor who has a very large open area that I can store it. He's essentially said yes. So I told him that I don't need it, but I think I will have to go back and ask him again. So this is the plan. Regularity is going to be here. The thing I don't know if I want to do yet, I think I will. I've got gray pieces of paper, cardboard, and I think I want to have a little area of gray, which will represent the finished city. And it will be very plain and boring by comparison to the actual work and construction and life of a building or a city under construction. So this is, I don't know what it is, a commercial for construction. But anyway, that's the plan. Areas like that are black, which might represent oil, I don't know what, oil or black dirt or something. I may just leave there. I may cover some of it up if it's a bother, but I kind of like it. I don't want it to imply that this is all underground so much as in the foreground. So these things down toward the bottom are meant to be just the surface of the earth, but just drawn in a way that you can, you don't have to pay attention. There's not going to be blades of grass. It's just good old dirt. And my plan also is, you see how nice this looks with the shadows and the highlights on the cardboard. When this gallery is officially lit, most of the work is on the walls. So this dramatic lighting isn't going to be as dramatic. You'll still see shadows below for the most part, but you won't see a dramatic thing, which is too bad because I kind of like drama. Anyway, I'll check back with you later, see if my fire has started yet. Nope, still okay. So here's where I am so far. First hour after the last video, I've added some angularity and pre-cut and pre-printed material to the chaos down there, so we're getting a little bit more regularized, which I think will be the background for most of the rather complicated and colorful tools I have. So there's some areas here where you see some of the torn stuff invade some of the pre-cut stuff for the angular stuff. And there'll be areas that'll be relatively blank, some more complicated. Here's the seam again that will be sealed in the future, but not now, not as I build it. So, arrow, cut out arrow, pointing to something I don't know what. So, anyway, here's what we're doing. And as you can see, my mess is spreading even further. But I have to, it's 9 o'clock now, so I've got 3 hours to finish and clean up and vacuum. And no one will know I was here, other than you, and you, and you, and you, and you. So I'll see you in an hour. Well, it's 10 o'clock now, and what I have done is more or less built to the height of the horizon line, and I've closed up the seam a bit. What I like about the top half is there's a lot of spanning that goes around the edge of the column. There wasn't so much down there when I was building it, because I thought I didn't think it was gonna work well. So what I'm gonna do is add some things that will span the corner on the bottom, and that'll make it, you'll see it more built up from the bottom horizontally, like strata, and less chopped up. And areas will be sort of open like that, and maybe like this, not quite so much. I'll add some bits, and other areas will be more crowded, more layered. And none of this is supposed to represent finished buildings. That will start if I add them. When I add them, it'll be from here up, from this point upward. So this is just all the dirt around the city where we're expanding. But I think this will work well. Why is that so much oranger? I was using an orange box, I guess, versus the less orange box there. So again, that makes those facets seem very different from one another, and that will change. It'll blend more like these do. And of course, when I put the trucks and everything on there, you won't even notice. Maybe. And again, had I made this round rather than octagonal, I wouldn't have this problem at all, but I kind of wanted it to be octagonal. So there we go. I've got another hour, and then I have to clean up. So I think what I'm going to do is try to tear some things and span the edges there. I may add some more of these pre-cut regular bits down there too, to sort of blend the whole thing together, as I'm doing here with some torn areas. I think that's the plan anyway. And whether I keep that big oil slick there and the big oil slick there, I'm not entirely sure. Probably will. Kind of like them. And so there's the plan. I've got my debris field is sorted out. This is stuff I can tear. This is stuff that has holes cut in that I can place to represent sort of the more structured bits. And I've got lots of hot glue. My thought was originally, and it still might be my thought, is to have an area of gray that represents the actual built city. This sort of neutral bit, sort of from here down to there, to just sort of represent the boring done part, and using this neutral gray with maybe some darker grays and lighter grays, maybe punching it up a little bit with a dotted pattern might be what I'll do. I may find that too distracting, but I think I need to represent sort of why all of this is being done. It's to make this boring gray bit, which is capitalism. The boring gray bit is what's destroying the planet. It's the boring gray bit. Oh, we're doomed. We are doomed. If it isn't the coronavirus, it will be everything else. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it. I'll come back in an hour and show you if I got anywhere. Bye for now. Well, I'm going to start cleaning up. I did span the corners with some of these things and invaded the rectilinear area into the chaotic area with some of these cut pieces, so that there's a little more integration between the two elements. And so I think it's working out pretty well. And I'm going to now take it into the office where I can store it until 5 o'clock tonight when I bring it back out and build some more of it. I did pretty much what I wanted to do today, and I could spend another hour on it, but I have to find the vacuum and make this place look tidy. If the gallery is going to decide to close, not that we ever have more than really 10 people here at any given time during the regular business hours, I will maybe be able to leave it up for the next week or so. But it should be easy enough to take apart. In fact, let's find out. This is the only part that's holding it together right here. So there it is. It's now connected. So there it is, flattened out. It may end up being displayed flattened at some point, but for the opening, it's meant to be around the column. It certainly does look very different though, doesn't it, with so much space. So anyway, let's see what this underbelly looks like. Fragile, it's from Italy. So there we go. Anyway, I will clean up my mess. Well, I'm here again, and I'm building little bits. I feel like I'm a quilter doing my little squares, except these aren't squares, are they? They're complicated shapes. Some have holes in them, some don't. And they will end up being applied to my column. So I've added some things down here. I want it to feel gradual as it comes up from the bottom, which is meant to represent sort of the foreground as well as the ground, and then we get to more refined man-impacted areas, and then eventually to the buildings that will be built. And the finished product, I talked with a neighbor whose opinion I respect about the addition of gray. And I think that right here, the band, sort of at my eye level, will be made of gray pieces, which will represent the finished product of the city. And the neutral gray that I'm going to be using to represent that is this. And it will be jagged. I mean, it will go up and down, and it will have a variety of, it will be built of a variety of shapes and rectangles, but relatively bland overall, because I sort of want the city to be, to sort of have that feel like the finished product is static, and especially right now when we're all trapped inside our homes rather than going out to the city and interacting with people. We're hunkering down to try to keep the spread of this virus from killing more people, because evidently it isn't a democratic hoax as some people had claimed. Some people that had no clue had claimed. And so we are doing our best by staying indoors. This is maybe a little tiny bit lighter than I wanted it to be. I do have some lighter grays and some darker grays that I can add to it here. That's the same color gray. Looks darker in the box, but I can always darken it by adding darker pieces afterwards. I thought, do I want to have sort of a brownish gray, but I sort of don't want that. I want it to be more neutral gray. I might decide to put a little bit of, this is metallic reflective paper. Maybe I'll have a little tiny bit of this thrown in there just for fun. The neighbor gave me this, which is transparent. I think that that's adding an element that I don't want to deal with to this project. Though it's cool, I may use that, and I have used that in other things, but I think this one I want to have be relatively opaque, I guess is the word. It's always interesting to decide, what rules you are going to follow in in the artwork that you make. And in this case, the rule of using this gray representing the city, I may actually just use that for part of it, like half of it, and then the other half may just end with the dirt here, or the construction, the man-made, undeveloped thing. We'll see. I haven't made that plan yet. The thing about making sculpture is, especially a sculpture like this, which is essentially a drawing, flat, it goes around something, is you can't see all of it at one time. There's part of it that's always obscured. And so this face might offer one kind of a vision where the face over here could be completely different or different enough. So I can have my cake and eat it if I want to. Like the plan is to have these big red cranes going up, and I really want them to be visible at one point and not visible from another point, because they're going to be very strong because they're bright red, and I kind of want to have the ability to not see that from one area, because it's just I don't know if I want you to see that first or see that second. I mean, that's the thing that I've got to decide. When you walk into the gallery, you will come in, here's the gallery doors, and you'll see it from the outside lobby. You'll see this face. And I may not want the red things to be seen. I may want that to be a surprise. When you get over here, you go, oh my God, Per Gustafsson, what are you doing? I may want it to be the punchline or a punchline. So it's fun. It's fun deciding how you organize your artwork to be seen in a particular order. And normally, when you walk up to a sculpture or a painting in a gallery, it's right in front of you, and you can see it from far away, and you get close and you're done, and you look at it and you study it. You look at it from this angle, straight on. You rarely walk over here and look at it from the side, because it gives you a distorted view. So with flat drawings or paintings, you see them essentially head on. But with this one, because the drawing is essentially circular or cylindrical, you can't see it all at the same time. So do I want it to have a starting point? And what would that starting point be? Maybe it isn't important for this kind of work, but I kind of want the red things to be kind of a punchline. I want that to have a surprise, so I think I will put them on the back. You might see them only from this side after you see the other side first. So that's my plan. I've made a decision, and I thank you for helping me make that, because by just thinking about it, you sometimes can't come up with the answer. By talking about it, by using verbs and nouns and adverbs and adjectives and stuff, using your vocal cords, I can hear myself my ears are included in this, and then I hear the talking peer talking and the listening peer listening, and the listening peer can think, God, that's a stupid idea, talking peer. Well, be that way, he'll say. And I'll say, no, it's fine. But by hearing yourself think with your ears, not just your brain, and by making words, talking to yourself is important. It's not a sign of dementia all the time. Is it? Well, I'm talking to myself again and talking to you. So I've added my skyline, and I kind of like it. It's very neutral, which I am happy about. I don't really see it as anything other than what I intended it to be, which is this boring backdrop, leaving the excitement to happen down here. I may choose to have this area be without the gray, or maybe, a little tiny bit of gray, but the sort of building, these are representing, in my shorthand here, these represent buildings in the process of being built, perhaps, or some of the non-tractor and vehicle objects in the construction of a city. So I guess they represent buildings or foundations of buildings. What am I kidding? What this means, who knows exactly. Maybe this is a building being taken down. I don't have a one-to-one correspondence with everything that goes on here. Maybe half of it has a specific meaning, or has a specific cognate in the real world. Does that dot represent something? And there's another one of those somethings here, because it's the same dot on the same package. I don't think it needs to in this particular display. Does that big black area mean anything? Maybe it's up to you to decide. See, look what I did, burned my little finger. That little hole, what does that mean? I don't know. Not everything in this construction has a purpose. Well, not all of it has a purpose, for one thing. Not all of it has a specific meaning, like, why did I include this here? Most of my things don't have words, and I'm trying to kind of avoid that on these, but I thought, I know some of the actual trucks and stuff that I make have words in them, so words is part of it, so I figure I shouldn't not have it here. But my plan was not to include too much of that, because I want this to be the background, really. Maybe it'll turn out to be the most important part of what this is all about. You see, I'm changing my mind in the middle of my sentence. So anyway, I do have a lighter piece of gray somewhere here. And do I want to include that to imply atmospheric perspective? I may want to do that. I have a darker gray here. This is not black, it's gray. So I have used that, so I probably will use a lighter gray to represent something in the distance. At the moment, though, I'm thinking that the city will be seen, the built city will be seen from this angle. On the back, you won't see that very much. Maybe you'll see one coming up, but most of it will be not there because I'm going to have the big red cranes on this side. Unless, of course, I change my mind again, which I do. I'm going to break soon for lunch. The gallery is open for business, though I don't really think we're going to have people from the outside world coming in. But the woman that curated this show lives in the building here, and I don't want to. I want to be able to move all this stuff out of here if she wants me to, because after all, this is her show that she worked very hard to create and curate and to organize, and the last thing I want to do is block the visitors from seeing her show the way she wants it to be seen. So I may just go up and eat my lunch now very quickly and come back down so I can move this out in case there is a visitor. And that table can be dragged out, the chair, and this is all one piece. So I can pull this out. And I could actually be building this outside the gallery, but because it is going to fit sort of in this column, it's helpful for me to see. This is essentially my canvas as well as what I'm doing. So even though I didn't make that part, it is a part of what I'm doing. The column is meant to be considered a part of this, I guess. So, is it? Think about what I just, listen to what you just said. The listening peer, the peer that has the ears. Does that make sense? Not just the babbling peer. I'm listening for the echo. I think it makes sense. You know, maybe once I start adding things, the column aspect, the columnness of this will disappear, but I don't think so. I think the column will be seen as very much a part of it. Essentially, especially because the cranes actually require those pieces of wood up there that were attached to the column 30 years ago for some reason. I'll be needing those to hold up the cranes because they will fall over if I don't have them there. There you go. So the column is there with the skyline in the distance, and I've got a table full of stuff here, and what I've been making are little shapes like that one and this one. Looks like a witch on a broom with an outboard motor. This one. And these are going to end up, I'm going to save these for when I'm actually populating this thing with my little trucks and stuff, because I may put these things sort of between the background here and the truck to imply something. I don't know what. It may make the background less busy. It may, I think, right now, the shape is too, the elephant with the extra long trunk and its mouth open is not going to help in the way that I'm imagining it will help eventually, but I think it will. So I'm building these things, and some of them are more condensed, some have a couple of different tonalities to them. But again, these are meant sort of as a little tiny bit of regularity for the background that may be a little bit too chaotic for some of these things. Maybe this is just making them more chaotic, I don't know. In which case, these will end up being used to represent buildings being constructed. Maybe that's what I'll end up using them for. We've got lots of activity happening here. So they're sort of fun. These were the corners of a frame, and so I've allowed the shapes of these things to sort of live and be put together without really a lot of thought. And again, I may use them in this project or use them for something completely different. I haven't entirely decided. Right now, I want to take a nap, but I can't. No, I can take a nap. I think what I'm going to do is clean up this and move it out into the lobby area and go into my house and upload this video, etc. And then just wait until Sunday to set this up again, because I'll have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday that I can spend here the entire time without having to move anything out of the way for a visitor if there is one. There hasn't been any today, and I really don't expect more, so I could probably leave it, but I think I'm going to just call it quits for today. Essentially, though, the backdrop is 90% finished, and I'm going to start applying the little trucks and stuff to it shortly. Not shortly, next week, but I will. I've finished with this. I finished this part of the project, more or less. And on that note, goodbye.